Ladies and gentlemen, the world has a new biggest city. Trump is pardoning a convicted drug trafficker, and the U.S. is potentially conducting war crimes in the Caribbean. We've got those stories and a whole lot more in today's episode of Roca News. We hope that you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm Max Frost. Max Toohey is sick today, but we got Billy Carney here.
Next best thing, right? Good to see you, Max.
Good to see you.
And, just another Monday here as we have all these fun stories. So why don't we get right into it? So, as Max said, the world has a new biggest city. Jakarta, Indonesia's capital, has displaced Tokyo as the world's most populous city, per a new UN report. Basically, Jakarta's population has been exploding organically and through domestic migration, not so much international migration, but basically people within Indonesia looking for higher wages, better education, better healthcare, and that's pushing a lot of people to these city centers.
Yeah, so in essence, until this point, Tokyo was the world's biggest city for decades. That's always been kind of held up that Tokyo is the biggest. But now the UN switches its methodology. So until this, the UN would look at different countries, their self-reported data, and then it would kind of compile a list of the biggest cities in the world. Japan has great data. It's a very sophisticated country, whereas places like Indonesia or Bangladesh, less so. But the UN switched it up. So now that they're pulling more data and they're able to say that Jakarta is the biggest city in the world. Interesting thing about Jakarta too, there's so many people there. It's so overpopulated that the Indonesian government is currently in the process of building a new capital in the middle of the rainforest on a different island. It's something we should talk about in a different episode. Okay, now number one is Jakarta now. Tokyo dropped to number 3. Billy, do you know what number 2 is?
I believe it may be the capital of Bangladesh. Is that correct?
Correct. Dhaka is number 2. Good old Dhaka. So another interesting tidbit, just to comment on this, 45% of the world's population now lives in cities. For context, it was 20% in 1950. This urbanization is especially happening in the developing world in places like India, Sub-Saharan Africa, Indonesia, where, like Billy said before, people are constantly just moving from the countryside to the cities in search of better opportunity. This is interesting. Not a headline I expected to wake up and encounter today.
Especially now off of changing methodologies. Like, hey, we tweaked our metrics. Now, so Jakarta went from 11 million people to 42.
Yeah,
I was also going to say, Dhaka, that's also wasn't it the Dreamers Act under Obama?
Oh, yeah, right? DACA, not DHAKA.
Dhaka, congrats to...
Don't want to get those confused.
No, never to be confused.
Speaking of which, you have a note here about Wally World. Remind me about Wally World.
So, do you remember in Wally, it was like the movie about the robot, and all the people in the movie were overweight, sitting in those floating chairs, and they would be wheeled around, and basically everything was this big metropolis where nobody touched the ground.
Honestly, I kind of forgot about that, but now that you say it, I do remember. I was going to say, Wall-E now, I feel is all over the place. In terms of modern pop culture relevance, Wall-E's way up there.
Yeah, it's like that, what was it, Her, that old movie about the guy marrying the AI robot. Also, speaking of animated movies, Zootopia 2 this weekend, the largest opening weekend for an animated movie ever. Wow. 5th biggest, or top 5, one of the top 5 biggest Thanksgiving weekend openers ever.
Wow.
For Zootopia 2.
See, the thing I noticed this weekend watching a lot of football was the number of ads for the new Avatar movie. I didn't even know that was coming out, and now it's you can't get away from it. So over in Asia, we got some big cities. Also, it's worth noting 33 million. It makes was that what the number was? 33 million in Jakarta?
42 million.
42 million. It makes our cities just look Mickey over here. What, New York City? New York City entire metro area is 16 million, and that's the biggest in the U.S.
Yeah, I think 33 was the real quick. 30. It was 33rd last year in the rankings.
Okay. Another interesting thing on this report too was that 9 of 10 countries. Another interesting thing in this report is that 9 of 10 cities are located in Asia. 1 city is not. Can you name what that city is? There's 1 city in the top 10 most populous cities on Earth that is not in Asia. What city is that?
Ooh. I would say it's not Lagos, is it?
No, that wasn't, which surprised me.
I may be out of guesses here. I have no idea.
Cairo, Egypt was the one of 10.
How big is it?
20-ish million. Pull up the report. Let's see here. But you gotta check.
23.
You gotta check the new. Pull up the top 10. Pull up the UN report. And let's look at the top 10. Top 10 most populous cities. UN. Boom. All right. Okay. Let's see.
Wonder if they'll have a nice clean ranking.
Hold on.
for
It was
us.
right there. Wait. Where is it? Over half.
Is this paragraph right here?
Yes, Cairo is the only non-Asian city among the top 10. By 2050, the number of megacities is megacity divided. Let's see. Oh, over 10 million people. This is interesting. The amount of growth that's happening in both Asia and also these random places. Or sorry, these in Africa and random places in Asia, like Hajipur, India. I lived in India for a year. I've never heard of this place.
Really?
And it's on the verge of being a megacity per the UN. Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Wow. Interesting.
It's a lot of people.
We got to start Roca Cairo ASAP.
Or Hajipur.
Or Roca Hajipur. Roca Hajipur. All right, Billy, what do we got next?
Next up, we have a little bit of trouble in paradise, if you consider the Caribbean paradise, which I certainly do. Basically, a bipartisan group of lawmakers have opened up an investigation alleging that the U.S. has committed a hate crime in the Caribbean. Or, excuse me, a war crime in the Caribbean. Not a hate. Well, we'll see. So essentially, the U.S. has been striking these drug trafficking boats since September. But there is an alleged report that just came out that says an attack on, I think it was September 2nd, the U.S. allegedly double tapped a boat, meaning that it struck the boat trying to kill everybody on board, but 2 people survived. So it hit the same boat again with a missile strike, and that eliminated the 2 surviving members of the strike.
So now the significance of this, so the U.S. allegedly bombed this boat 2 times back to back in the Caribbean on alleged drug traffickers coming from Venezuela. But the reason that this is allegedly a war crime, and now this is bipartisan, you have Republicans and Democrats in both the House and the Senate opening investigations into this. The reason that this is potentially illegal is because under international law, you cannot kill someone who's trying to surrender, and you can't kill someone who doesn't pose an immediate threat to you. This is an argument about the whole boat situation overall, where people are saying these drug traffickers who are being bombed by the U.S. and the Caribbean do not pose a threat to the U.S., an immediate threat to the U.S., period. That's one argument just against these strikes. But this specifically, so they bombed the boat. There are, I believe, a couple people who survived who are floating there in the ocean, and they called in another strike, boom, killed them all. And that could potentially violate international law, although people dispute whether international law even matters. That being said, there are ethics in war still, and that's what is being debated here.
For what it's worth, Trump said that he would not have wanted, and that's a quote, wouldn't have wanted a follow-up attack on survivors. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro, who many say is an authoritarian, I think most would agree, accused the U.S. of kind of using these drug accusations as a precursor to overthrowing his regime as well. So, you know, I think as far as the war crime goes, I don't know. Maybe not. Probably, to be honest.
We'll find out. One thing that's interesting too is Hegseth called the report, which I believe the Washington Post had, fabricated. Yet he did not exactly address it, and he said that he ordered, quote, kinetic strikes against drug traffickers in the Caribbean. So it's kind of unclear. But the fact that they're not flat out saying this didn't happen suggests that it may have indeed happened. So, you know, this whole situation, this paves the way for a next story, which is really interesting. So you've got the U.S. here the U.S., for one thing, the military buildup the U.S. is conducting off the coast of Venezuela is huge. This is not just like a few troops here and there. I mean, it is a massive military buildup, the kind of thing you would do if you're preparing a war. And this is what the speculation is. The U.S. is trying to overthrow Maduro. Now, it's also obvious that the U.S. is negotiating with him. Last week, Trump had a phone call with Maduro the same week that he essentially said that your days are numbered and that we continue to conduct all these strikes on alleged Venezuelan drug boats in the Caribbean. Now, some have pointed out an irony in this right here. On Friday, Trump made the shock announcement that he was pardoning the former president of Honduras, who was convicted by the U.S. for drug trafficking, in a U.S. court for drug trafficking. So this president Where is his name? His name is, I don't want to screw this up.
Juan Orlando Hernandez.
So we have a Juan Orlando Hernandez. Don't want to. Even though I've been working on my Spanish, that's my new Spanish accent. So you had this president Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was the president of Honduras. He got out of office, and then he was convicted or was tried in the U.S. for drug trafficking. Essentially, what the U.S. charged him with, beginning in 2017 under the Trump administration, resulting in a conviction last year. They essentially said, with one hand, he was telling the U.S. he was helping fighting drug trafficking. With the other hand, he was taking bribes from El Chapo, allowing drug boats to transit through Honduras on his way north. And now Trump came out on Friday and made the shock announcement he's going to pardon him. And this was something that caught, everybody off guard. People didn't know this was happening. His own family didn't know this was happening, although the family had been lobbying for it, trying to convince Trump that his conviction was a politicized thing by the Biden administration. So the other significance of this, though, is this is coming on Sunday. On Sunday, Honduras held elections. And Saturday, Trump weighs in on these elections a day after pardoning the former president. And he says he wants the former president's party to win. And he says that, which is a conservative party, he says that if the leftist party wins in Honduras, it will become the next Venezuela. And as of Monday, that election is currently tied. I don't know if you saw this, Billy. There were 3 candidates in it, the left and then 2 on the right. The one on the left lost to Trump's joy. The other 2 in the national election for president were within, I think it was 4,000 votes of each other.
Wow.
And now Honduras has had issues in the past, state-sanctioned violence, a huge amount of corruption. There was a coup there, I believe, under the Obama administration, or maybe even in 2017. But now there's a situation where this closely watched election in which Trump did his part to try to sway it. You have a tie, essentially. So it's unclear what's going to happen. So Trump pardoned the guy on Friday. The election took place on Sunday.
Okay. And
the candidate from the pardoned guy's party is who Trump wanted to win. Now it's unclear. Right now he is leading by 4,000 votes, but who knows what's going to end up happening there.
That is a wild turn of events to just be sitting in jail and all of a sudden you see it Truth Social. And this is it. Here's the quote. Trump writes, "Congratulations to Juan Orlando Hernandez on your upcoming pardon." Later on, he goes, "Make Honduras great again." Just after him prosecuting you 5 years earlier. So that's a nice little turnaround for him, I guess. Yeah, and the other quote Trump had, he sent out this long message urging Honduras people to vote for the Hondurans to vote for the conservative party. And he said if they don't, Venezuela would, quote, take over Honduras, and a leftist victory would bring narco-communists to power there. So this is kind of the thing now. The narco-communists have become kind of the new bogeyman. Move aside, neocons. Well, that's. I don't even know what to make of this. So I guess the expectation is this guy's going to go back to Honduras, and he's going to rev up support for the candidate that Trump wants to win.
Yeah, I was reading about trying to understand what people see. It's not really clear. I think that, in the way that Trump has done this with a few other people by doing favors for people, leveraging, American power to do favors for people, it seeks to make them owe you. Mm-hmm. And I think perhaps the idea here is if Trump frees this guy, the U.S. frees this guy, sends him home, he'll essentially become the U.S. lackey in Honduras. It's similar with what Trump did, I think, with Eric Adams. When Trump intervened to have the charges dropped against Eric Adams, and essentially it was a quid pro quo everyone knew about, where Eric Adams then would allow Trump to do his crime or illegal immigration crackdown in New York City. Did not work out very well for Eric Adams, but he's not in jail. So I guess maybe that
could always be worse.
Yeah, if you think about that, what was even the point of that? Why did Trump do that?
Let Adams go? He let
Adams go. He ends up with Zoran as mayor. It wasn't like anything. It wasn't like ICE agents were raiding New York City since that. I don't understand. I don't understand what Trump got out of it, and certainly did not help his strategy in New York. He was ardently against Zoran during the election.
Yeah, well, there's still as far as ICE raids in New York, sure, but he certainly seemed to work with Trump a lot more than the other mayors are working with him. So that's one. I think Trump probably has a soft spot for New York as well, being from here and all he said about and meeting with Zoran and everything. I don't necessarily think that this was a move expecting Eric Adams to win the election. I don't even know if Zoran was around at the time that this stuff was going on.
Yeah, I don't think he was.
But the corruption allegations for Adams stem, I think, far beyond just this.
It's true. It's very true. Well, yeah, this is interesting. I'm trying to think. What was the other story that we had for tomorrow? Was there...
For tomorrow...
I can't remember. Oh, this Campbell's Soup thing. This is terrible day to be a Campbell's Soup executive. Did you see this?
I did see it, but I want to pull up the clip as well.
So Campbell's Soup, this IT guy, this story is almost too bizarre to really make sense of. The IT guy at Campbell's Soup headquarters, which I believe is in Camden, New Jersey, goes in to have a meeting with the VP of IT. He goes into the meeting. He secretly records the meeting. In the meeting, the VP of IT goes on and says that Campbell's Soup is for poor people. It's quote, highly processed food for, quote, poor people. He says that Indians are, quote, idiots, and that he does not like working with them. IT guy goes on.
The stray to the Indians.
The IT guy goes on and makes a complaint about this to someone in the company. They allegedly retaliate against him and fire him. And then he sues and brings this recording out. Now, Campbell's Soup is trying to deal with the PR crisis. Campbell said in a statement, quote, Campbell's Soups are made with real chicken, period. Then they took a shot at the IT guy and they said, where was that? Go back real quick, Billy. They said, keep in mind, the alleged comments heard on the audio were made by a person in IT who has nothing to do with how we make our food. And then they said it was not, Campbell's also released a fact sheet, quote, that they said proves its chicken is not 3D printed, lab grown, or bioengineered.
If that's what the fact sheet says.
I don't even know why they did that, because in the recording and what was released about this, now they have they released the recording yet? Is that what you have there?
Yes. This is,
let's listen.
I believe so. Here we go.
From our perspective, we're looking at healthy brands, avocado-based oils, healthy. If you look at our pantry, we have for poor people, right? We have that's for poor people.
Who buys shit that's for poor people?
I don't buy cannabis products barely anymore. It's unhealthy. Now that I know what's in it.
Wow. Okay, so that was kind of tough for listeners to hear. That's probably kind of tough. But essentially, the guy says, the executive, I don't buy Campbell's. That's for poor people. And he says it's unhealthy.
Yeah. You know, I feel like everybody kind of knows Campbell's isn't exactly for the 1%. But at the same time, you don't want to hear yourself being called poor. I mean, that's like, you're just rubbing it in, man.
I was thinking about this yesterday when I was at the grocery store. I feel like to have an executive at a company go on the record shitting on your product is one of the worst things you could do.
Dude, totally.
You think about the images these brands try to cultivate. When I was at Trader Joe's yesterday, Trader Joe's has done such a good job of creating this brand of like, it's like a good vibe to go grocery shop. It's like affordable. You feel like you're getting good stuff for the price. Have you heard an executive from there come out and essentially say all the food we're selling is garbage and only poor people eat it? I'd be hard pressed to ever shop there again. Just out of pride,
Yeah.
out of people's own pride, they don't want to go out and give money to a company that's going to talk about them this way.
100%. I feel like it would be lesser at the store level like that, because Trader Joe's still has like the convenience factor of certain things it has, like with the pre-made food. But in terms of like, I was thinking that if next time I go to the store, well, most of the time my fiance does the shopping. But anyways, if I were to go to a supermarket, which I did this weekend, if I saw Campbell's, I would purposely go for an alternative, just because this is sitting in the back of my mind. Like, it's like I'm in. As you said, like out of pride, it feels like you're insulting yourself, picking up a can and using it, like giving money to people who hate you.
I wonder who this guy buys his soup from, because Campbell's is really the dominant soup company. So if you're not buying Campbell's, what are you buying?
Pret a manger. There's some pretty good soup. Now that 45% of the population lives in cities, they can go get some Pret.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so was there anything else? There was something else that just reminded me of. I don't know. Lane Kiffin has left for LSU. Now,
Shifting gears a little bit.
RocaNews was at the final ever home game for Ole Miss coach Lane Kiffin. We went to the press conference where he said, he's just enjoying the time at Ole Miss, and now he's gone. College football fans will know what we're talking about. Otherwise, stay tuned for that video coming out from the tailgating capital of America. But yeah, Billy, I'll kick it back to you. What else should we hit?
Well, I could talk about college football all day because I spent the past 40 hours watching it, waiting for one thing to go right for Notre Dame this past weekend. Basically, there were 6 different games. Out of them, one team had to be upset or go in a way that was preferable towards us, and a lot of dominoes would fall into place to lock in a position in the college football playoffs now that is somewhat uncertain.
Wait, not one?
Not a single one. So basically, there are a few things. For instance, if Miami lost, they would get off her heels. If Alabama lost, if Oklahoma lost,
If UVA lost. No, just kidding. That doesn't make a difference.
Actually, if UVA lost, I think Miami would have potentially, I'm not sure about this, potentially qualified for the ACC championship, which would have taken away the 11 seed auto bid for the ACC, which would have actually helped Notre Dame a lot. So you guys screwed us.
But Notre Dame they're in, aren't they?
They're likely in. So they're number 9 right now. Well, the official rankings come out tomorrow, but they're expected to be number 9 as they were last week. And the number 11 and 12 spot are accounted for by 2 conference champions. So basically, the buffer is 10. Right now, 10 is Alabama and 11 is BYU, and they both play conference championships next week. If they both win, they will very likely both jump Notre Dame and push Notre Dame into the 11th spot, which would be out. So we're Bama Georgia's going to be tricky. If BYU wins, which is unlikely, we're probably cooked. So we're all Texas Tech Raiders this week, Red Raiders this week.
BYU's playing Texas Tech.
Yes, and Texas Tech looks very good.
Yeah, I can't believe. I mean, if UVA wins, we're in, which just seems absolutely insane. But I was looking at the bracketology the other day or yesterday for it, and they have us playing Texas A&M right now.
That's a somewhat winnable game, to be honest. I mean, it's going to be tough, but like a lot of people are saying, like everybody kind of craps on BYU, and a lot of the argument is or rather that A&M is what everybody thinks BYU is, because they've played in the SEC all the bottom of the barrel teams. Then they played Texas last week, who was like pretty above average, and they beat A&M. That was their first loss. So we'll see.
We will see. Okay, should we talk about the We the 66 today, or what should we do here?
I kind of defer to you. Do you think there's enough to talk about with Mr. Bin Laden?
Well, there's nothing to talk about. I'll say this. So we wrote this article this morning about Bin Laden's compound, which I visited back in April. And to be clear, it's not like the compound in Pakistan is like a tourist attraction or anything. It was just I was curious about it. We had a driver. I asked him to take us there. So we went. And when we got there, all these people showed up. And they were trying to talk to us. And they were Bin Laden's neighbors at the time of his life, although a lot of them were younger. They would have been little kids when Bin Laden was killed, Uncle Osama kind of deal. But the reason I wrote it this weekend was because I realized that the same exact type of thought, like the same thought process that the people there use is what you're increasingly hearing here in the U.S. And what I mean by that, the people there in Pakistan, people do not believe that Bin Laden was killed in Pakistan. I'd say of the hundreds of people I talked to there, I asked many of them about it. I'd say less than 10% said that they believe the U.S. actually killed Bin Laden in Pakistan, and their reasoning, and then a similar share. It's similar for the number of people who think that he was a hero. I mean, around I'd say 90% of the people you talk to, they have a favorable opinion of Bin Laden. You might be thinking, how could they think this after he killed all these people, 9/11, the whole thing, and. I would say there's like the kind of like the Reddit take of, oh, it's because he was like fighting America. That's not what they said. That's not the point at all. The thing that you hear there is people like him because he was a leader of the Muslims and he was a prominent Muslim figure, and therefore, he had to have been a good person, because if you're a Muslim and you're a prominent Muslim, you must be a good person. And then they fit the logic of what he did to fit this. So, for example, they say they don't believe that he actually did 9/11 because he couldn't have done 9/11 because he was a good Muslim. And the logic kind of goes that way. You have the conclusion of Muslim leader equals inherently good person, and then you fix everything up to fit that.
Do you think that's true in that, in not saying that they don't believe he's a good Muslim, but like, do you think they really don't believe he did 9/11, or do you think they're just saying that to you to
like
appease the American?
I think they don't believe it. I think that in Pakistan, the distrust that you encounter in Pakistan of everything is so high. And there's a lot of reasons for this, some valid and some not valid. But they essentially believe that whenever like bad things happen, they believe it's some kind of conspiracy from the people I spoke. And again, I talked to a lot of people, of a wide range of socioeconomic backgrounds and the whole thing, from the poorest people to the richest people. And I'd say pretty solidly, people think that it wasn't possible that Bin Laden did this, that he couldn't have done it because, again, he was a Muslim, that it was the CIA doing it, or Israel or India to start a war against Muslims. You hear this kind of stuff all the time, and I think they meant it. I really think they meant it.
I do remember watching the video and feeling that the people were very like honest, I guess, about their views in a way that you wouldn't really get here.
Yeah, I don't think these are people in like villages and stuff. I don't think that they're thinking like, oh, I gotta hide and act a certain. They would have no idea to gauge what I would even want to hear, you know. And they just took for granted that like Bin Laden didn't do this stuff. That it was all a CIA hoax. So I think that was interesting. But the reason I read about it now is because I was just in Arkansas, and in Arkansas, I met some. I think you could reasonably call them neo-Nazis, and they had the same exact approach to things. And what I mean by that is, they won't call it Nazism, they call it National Socialism, and they would say it's not that bad. It's good. It was actually good. What they did in Germany was good. And then you'd be like, well, obviously, what about the Holocaust? And then they reduce it into the same way that these people would do in Pakistan, which is to say, in Pakistan, what they would say is, Bin Laden's a Muslim. That's like number one. So then the facts beneath that, therefore he could not have done 9/11. Okay, and then what they're saying about Germany was, oh, the Nazis were benevolent rulers, therefore they couldn't have killed millions of people. In fact, a guy in the Klan, in the KKK, he told me himself, he said, if I believe they did what they did, it would be immoral for me to support them. So he's saying it outright. And then when you push into it, obviously the body of research, this is the World War II is the most studied event in history. And the conclusion of all the history is that this happened. And yet they're minimizing all of that. The tomes, all the human testaments to it, the survivors, everything that you hear is tossed out to just cherry pick the one thing that supports it. And it's the same thing with Bin Laden stuff. Are there arguments? Is there information that you could present to say that Bin Laden wasn't actually in Pakistan? Of course. But there's also an overwhelming preponderance of evidence to suggest that he was. And that's what leads to it. So anyways, that's what led to this article, which I just thought was interesting because it's the same thing. It's like ideology ahead of like reason. And you can see it with anything. Obviously, you can find examples on the American left. I mean, many, many, many stuff. You look at the stuff with around gender, and it's like, well, obviously, like the reality is the reality here, and yet you have an ideology that says, oh, there is no gender, there's no such thing as this and that, and it's the same thing. It's sacrificing reason to ideology. You can see it in fundamentalist people in Pakistan, or you can see it, here on the far right, the far left. It's everywhere. It's the same thing.
That's very interesting. It's the just out of curiosity. So. The guy who said it was like a moral, what exactly did he like?
He said if I believe the Nazis committed the Holocaust and I still supported them, it would be immoral.
Okay, I've seen a lot of people say online that there's dispute over the numbers of people killed in the Holocaust. So is this person's stance that like it was zero, or
the common thing with this is what I learned from talking to these people and just reading more into it. The common thing with the reason I think the number is considered sacrosanct is obviously there's ranges that historians of 5 million to 8 million to there's whatever. The thing is that once the number starts to get challenged, then it becomes a whole. Then you're essentially opening the door to reducing it and eliminating it. And that's the thing when you talk to these people, they'll start with it's Daryl Cooper. This is the Daryl Cooper thing. What Daryl Cooper said when he was on Tucker's show was that it was starvation. And it wasn't an intentional thing. You had all these people, they were dying, they were essentially the Jews were prisoners of war, and then they starved because they ran out of food under Allied bombing, which essentially makes it our fault, for this. So you're shifting the blame to a different party, and you're saying that it was an accident. And if it's an accident, then the Germans are no longer guilty. The Nazis are not guilty of it. And if the Nazis were not guilty of this, well, then they weren't that bad. And then you can embrace those ideologies. Which the news, like to me, the thing I really took away from these conversations was the trope of like the neo-Nazi thing. That's not really what neo-Nazis are. It's not like there are these people, the skinhead with the tattoos and stuff. But for the most part, it's more people who are, they've come to their own conclusion about history and stuff. They're not like, they're not trying to they don't necessarily call for repeating what their conception of what happened there is very different than our conception of what happened there. I just think it's fringe, and I think it's based in ideology, although it's becoming ever less fringe as, again, ideology takes over everything in our society, it seems.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's all we had for today. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, we're going to keep it short. We're going to get on with our lives and let you get on with yours. And we hope you have a wonderful Monday. We will be back on Tuesday. Thank you for watching.
And please subscribe if you have not. We are doing this every day. And thank you so much for watching.
Thank you all.
Ciao.